There's a unique kind of pain that comes from being betrayed by the people who are supposed to protect you, love you, and stand by your side. When family, those we trust the most, turns against us, it shakes the foundation of everything we believe in. Let's take a deep breath together. This is not an easy conversation, but it's a necessary one. Because if you felt this betrayal, if you've carried this weight in your heart, I want you to know that you are not alone. The pain of being betrayed by family is not just emotional, it's physical, psychological, and deeply spiritual. It sits heavy in the chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to trust, hard to understand how someone who was supposed to love you could hurt you so profoundly. And here's the thing, this pain isn't something you can just get over because someone tells you to or because time passes. It lingers in the quiet moments, in the holidays where their absence is louder than their presence ever was, in the small reminders of what should have been. And yet, so often, when we express our pain, we're met with dismissal. That's just how they are. Family is family. You should let it go. But this pain is real. It has weight. And it matters because you matter. The betrayal you experience isn't some minor inconvenience or something you imagine is a wound. And wounds, when ignored, don't heal. They fester. They deepen, and they impact how we see ourselves, how we see others, and how we move through the world. Acknowledging the pain is the first step in reclaiming your right to heal, to grieve, and to honor what was lost. When you are betrayed by family, it doesn't just hurt, it changes you. Because family is where we are supposed to be safe, where we learn love, where we develop our first understanding of trust and belonging. So when that space is no longer safe, when the people who were supposed to protect you become the ones who wound you, it can leave you questioning everything. You wonder if love is real, if trust is even possible, if you will ever feel truly at home anywhere. That kind of pain doesn't just go away with time. It reshapes the way you show up in relationships, the way you protect yourself, the way you let others in or don't. And that is why it matters. Because this isn't just about one incident, one lie, one betrayal. It's about the ripple effect it has on your entire sense of self. To ignore this pain, to pretend it's not significant, is to ignore a piece of your own heart that is crying out for care, for understanding, for validation. The pain demands to be felt, not because it's comfortable, but because feeling it is the only way to move through it. And yet, the world doesn't always give us the space to name this pain. There's this unspoken rule that family wounds should be endured in silence, that blood ties mean forgiveness without accountability, that loyalty should override self-respect. But here's the truth being, hurt by family doesn't make you weak. Acknowledging that hurt doesn't make you ungrateful, it makes you human. And if we don't allow ourselves to sit with this pain, to acknowledge its depth, we carry it forward in ways we don't even realize. It shows up in our hesitation to trust, in our fear of abandonment, in the way we minimize our own needs to avoid conflict. This is why it matters. Because this pain is real, and if we don't give it the space to be seen, it doesn't just disappear, it embeds itself into the fabric of our being. But when we allow ourselves to say, this hurt me, without justification, without self-blame, we take the first step in honoring our own experience. And that is the foundation of healing, not ignoring the pain, not silencing it, but recognizing that it is real. And because it is real, so are you. When betrayal comes from family, one of the first instincts is to turn inward, searching for an explanation that makes sense. Maybe if I had been quieter, maybe if I had tried harder, maybe if I had been more patient, more loving, more forgiving, then they wouldn't have done what they did. This is what we do when we're hurt. We try to find the reason, and more often than not, we place the blame on ourselves. Because if it's our fault, then maybe we could have controlled it, maybe we could have prevented it, maybe we can fix it. But the truth is, family betrayal isn't about you. It's about them, their choices, their patterns, their inability to show up in a way that honors love and trust. You could have done everything right, and it still wouldn't have changed the way they treated you. Their betrayal was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their wounds, their shortcomings, their inability to love in the way you deserve. Holding yourself responsible for their actions only keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-blame, and that is not a weight you were meant to carry. There is something deeply unfair about the way we are conditioned to believe that family dynamics should be tolerated no matter the harm they cause. When a family member betrays you, whether through lies, manipulation, neglect, or outright cruelty, there is often an expectation that you should simply accept it, forgive, and move on. But let's be clear, forgiveness does not erase accountability, and being hurt by family does not mean you were the problem. Some people are so wrapped up in their own dysfunction that they project their pain onto the ones closest to them. They may have been hurt themselves. They may be repeating toxic cycles they never had the courage to break. But none of that is your burden to bear. You are not responsible for their healing, for their growth, for their choices. And no matter how much you love someone, no matter how deeply you wish things could be different, you cannot force someone to treat you with kindness, respect, and care. That is a choice they must make, and if they chose betrayal instead, that is on them, not on you. And yet, the guilt lingers. It whispers, maybe I should have tried one more time. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe this is just how family is. But here's the thing, family should never be a place where you have to shrink yourself to be accepted. You should not have to earn the right to be treated with basic dignity. And yet, when betrayal happens, we second guess our own experience because society tells us that family should be untouchable, that blood is thicker than boundaries. But that narrative is a lie. Love is what makes a family not shared DNA, not forced loyalty, not suffering in silence. And love, real love, does not betray, manipulate, or wound. It nurtures, protects, and honors. If someone in your family failed to do that, it was not because you were unworthy of love, it was because they were incapable of giving it in the way you deserve. Let that truth settle in. Let it sink past the shame, past the self-doubt, past the lies that told you this was somehow your fault, because it never was. There is a deep longing in all of us to make things right, to fix what's broken, to return to the place of our deepest wounds and somehow rewrite the story. When family betrays us, that longing can be overwhelming. We think, if I just prove my worth, if I just show them how much I love them, maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll see what they did and make it right. But healing doesn't happen in the same space where the hurt was created. You cannot find peace in a battlefield still littered with unspoken resentment, manipulation, and cycles of dysfunction that refuse to break. You cannot build wholeness in an environment that refuses to acknowledge the damage that was done. And yet, so many of us stay stuck in the hope that things will be different, that if we endure just a little longer, the love we deserve will finally show up. But here's the truth. Love does not require suffering. Healing does not come from continuously exposing yourself to the same pain, waiting for it to stop. Healing requires distance, perspective, and the courage to step away from what is familiar but harmful. Walking away doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't wish things could be different. It means you are choosing yourself, and that is one of the hardest, bravest things you will ever do. Because the world has conditioned us to believe that loyalty means endurance, that family means unconditional access, that love means staying no matter the cost. But what if love, real love, means choosing your own well-being? What if healing requires you to let go of the version of the story you desperately wanted and accept the reality of what is? Because the people who hurt you may never acknowledge their role in your pain. They may never offer the apology you deserve. And if you stay waiting for them to change, waiting for the wounds to close in the same place they were inflicted, you may never experience the kind of healing that allows you to breathe freely again. Healing begins when you decide that your peace is more important than their expectations. But stepping away is terrifying, isn't it? Because even in the pain, even in the betrayal, there is familiarity, and sometimes we confuse familiarity with safety. We tell ourselves that it's better to endure the known pain than risk the unknown, than risk being alone. But the truth is, you have already been alone, in the worst way alone, in your pain. Alone in your silence, alone in the moments when you were hurting and they didn't care enough to see it. The real loneliness is not in leaving. It's in staying in a place where your pain is ignored, where your boundaries are disrespected, where your worth is constantly questioned. Healing asks you to step into discomfort. It asks you to grieve what should have been while making space for what could be. It asks you to trust that there is a version of you on the other side of this one who is no longer defined by the hurt, no longer stuck in the cycle, no longer waiting for people who have already shown you who they are. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts when it comes to healing from betrayal, especially when that betrayal comes from family. People will tell you that forgiveness means opening the door again, giving them another chance, sitting at the same table with the same people who broke you. But let's be clear, forgiveness is for you, not them. Forgiveness is about releasing the hold that resentment has on your heart, about freeing yourself from the weight of replaying the betrayal over and over again in your mind. It is not about pretending it didn't happen, about letting someone back into your life without accountability, about ignoring the reality of who they are. Forgiveness does not erase the need for boundaries. It does not demand that you go back to a place where you were disrespected, manipulated, or harmed. What it does is allow you to reclaim your own peace, to say, I will not carry this pain any longer. I will not let what they did define me. But choosing to forgive does not mean you are obligated to let them back in. You can wish them healing from a distance. You can release the anger without reopening the door. And yet, there is so much pressure to reconcile, especially when it comes to family. People will tell you that you should just let it go, that life is short, that family is everything. But what they fail to understand is that reconciliation requires two people. It requires effort, accountability, and a genuine willingness to make things right. It is not something you can force on your own. You cannot be the only one doing the work, the only one trying to rebuild trust, the only one willing to acknowledge the pain that was caused. And here's the hard truth. Some people don't change. Some people will never take responsibility for the damage they caused. Some people will continue to operate from a place of denial, manipulation, or selfishness, and no amount of your forgiveness will change that. And so when people tell you that forgiveness and reconciliation are the same thing, they are asking you to prioritize keeping the peace over protecting yourself. But forgiveness is an internal process. Reconciliation is a choice, and it is a choice that should only be made when there is evidence that the person who hurt you has done the work to earn their place in your life again. This is where so many of us struggle, because we have been conditioned to believe that if we do not reconnect, we are somehow holding on to bitterness, that we are being too harsh, that we are shutting people out. But the truth is, you can forgive someone completely and still decide that they do not belong in your life. You can say, I release the anger, I release the pain, I no longer carry what you did to me, while also saying, I will not allow you access to me again. And that decision isn't cruel, it's self-respect. Forgiveness is an act of personal freedom. It is about unburdening yourself, about making peace with the past so that it no longer controls your future. But letting go of the pain does not mean inviting back the person who caused it. And if someone has not shown you with their actions that they have changed, if they have not demonstrated a real commitment to being different, then reconciliation is not only unnecessary, it's unsafe. You deserve to heal without being pulled back into the very environment that broke you. And that is not unforgiveness, that is wisdom. One of the hardest truths to accept is that family is not always the people you were born, toits, the people you choose, the people who choose you. For so long, we've been told that blood is thicker than water, that family is forever, that no matter what they do, we must stand by them. But what happens when family becomes the source of your deepest wounds, when the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones who betrayed your trust, dismissed your pain, or made you feel small? Staying tied to people who hurt you simply because of shared DNA is not love, it's obligation. And obligation is not a foundation for belonging. Belonging happens when you are seen, valued, and accepted for who you truly are. It happens when the people in your life hold space for you, respect your boundaries, and love you without conditions. And sometimes the people who can do that best are not the ones you share a last name with. Sometimes family is the friend who listens without judgment, the mentor who guides you with kindness, the community that lifts you up when your own bloodline tears you down. Choosing your family is an act of self-respect. It is the decision to surround yourself with people who nourish your soul instead of depleting it, who celebrate your growth instead of resenting it, who honor your worth instead of making you question it. And yet, so many of us hesitate to walk away from harmful family dynamics because we fear what it means to be without them. We wonder, if I let go, will I be alone? But here's the truth. You are not losing family. You are making space for the right people to enter your life. You are creating room for love that is real, for relationships that are reciprocal, for connections that don't demand that you shrink yourself to fit someone else's expectations. This is not betrayal. This is not selfishness. This is choosing to build a life where you are surrounded by people who choose you back, not out of duty, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care, respect, and love. Because real family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up, who supports you, who holds your heart with care. And yet, breaking away from the idea that family must be tied to genetics is one of the most challenging and courageous things you will ever do. Society doesn't teach us that we have a choice when it comes to family. It tells us to endure, to make peace, to tolerate. But what if peace isn't found in enduring dysfunction? What if peace is found in knowing that you deserve better? That you are allowed to create a family that feels like home, that fills you with warmth, that doesn't require you to constantly prove your worth. When you stop chasing approval from people who refuse to see you, when you stop trying to heal in relationships that continuously harm you, you open the door to something greater. You get to build a new definition of family, one rooted in love, respect, and mutual care. And that is not something you have to earn. That is something you are worthy of, simply because you exist. When betrayal comes from the people who were supposed to protect you, it can feel like an ending, like the chapter you thought would hold love and safety has been torn apart, leaving only emptiness behind. You start to wonder if this is all there is, if the pain, the disappointment, the loneliness will define the rest of your life. But let me tell you something, your story is not over. This moment, no matter how heavy, no matter how unbearable, is just a page. And pages turn. Pain has a way of convincing us that we are stuck, that we will always be the person who was hurt, that we will never be able to move beyond what happened. But your past is not a life sentence. What they did to you does not get to decide the person you become. Yes, the wounds are real. Yes, the loss is real, but so is your resilience. So is your ability to rise, to rewrite, to rebuild. You are not meant to stay trapped in this chapter forever. And even if right now all you can see is the pain, I promise you there is more waiting for you on the other side of this. The hardest part of healing is believing that a future exists beyond the heartbreak. Because when family wounds you, it shakes the foundation of everything you believed about love, trust, and connection. It makes you question your own worth, your ability to be loved, your ability to belong anywhere at all. But listen to me, what they did is not the whole story. They may have shaped a part of your journey, but they do not get to define the rest of it. You do. You get to choose how you carry this pain. You get to decide whether this betrayal becomes a permanent weight or a lesson that fuels your strength. And I know it's not fair. You didn't ask for this. You didn't deserve this, but you are still here. And that means there is still time. Time to heal, to grow, to surround yourself with people who see you for who you are, not who they tried to make you feel like. Time to create new connections, new experiences, new definitions of love and family. Time to step into a version of yourself that isn't built around the hurt, but around the strength you found because of it. But here's the thing, healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's not about pretending the pain didn't exist or trying to erase the past. It's about learning how to hold your own story with compassion instead of shame. It's about understanding that what happened to you is not the same as what is ahead of you. Your past does not get to steal your future unless you let it. And I know some days it's easier to believe that the damage is too deep, that the betrayal was too great, that the best parts of your life were left behind. But I need you to hear me when I say this. There is still so much ahead of you. There is still joy waiting for you, still love that will find you, still peace that will settle in places you never thought possible. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not finished. This chapter may be painful, but your story is far from over.